Today, I wanted to talk about the importance or the value of asceticism and renunciation in spiritual practice. So, it's all over the spiritual world, the idea that you have to reject worldliness or materiality, right? It's the image of a monk, somebody who's not surrounded by many material things, who's not worldly, who doesn't engage in the world, maybe doesn't have children, doesn't own things. This is central to a lot of our understanding of spirituality. But what does that really mean, and why is that? And it's something that we don't maybe often think about. What's the point? Why? Why is materiality bad? In quotes. Why is it often perceived as bad? There's a very practical answer, which is simply that getting in touch with yourself on the deepest level and feeling what you are, feeling this, you could say, divine presence, this being, this state of awareness, is a very subtle thing, especially at first. It's like hearing or listening for a sound that is almost imperceptible in the beginning. Once you tune into that sound, really like listening to a noise, once you catch that frequency, with your hearing, you notice, oh, there's that sound. It becomes quite easy to focus on it over time. And you hear it everywhere. I mean, you know it's there. But in the beginning, imagine that there are many sounds in a room and we're listening for like a low-level hum. It's going to be almost impossible to hear with so much noise in a room. Anybody who can already hear it, who already knows that that noise is there, even in a loud room, is going to be able to switch to that focus because perhaps they've already heard that, low frequency in a more silent context. They've isolated it with their attention. And now even in a crowded context, they know what to listen for. But it's certainly, a loud restaurant is certainly not the space to teach a person, do you hear that sound? Do you hear that really quiet sound? It's going to be impossible to isolate with your focus, or nearly impossible. So that's a metaphor. It's not exact, but it's pretty good, I think. And so renunciation is just that. It's giving up so many things that absorb your attention. Right? It's not because they're bad. The things in themselves, owning things, being involved in things, I don't know, having, romantic or sexual relationships or whatever. I mean, is any of that inherently bad? No. But it does absorb your attention. And it's very difficult to notice a very subtle presence if you are invested in just so much happening. And, relationships mean navigating relationships and dynamics, and being very involved in work means probably a constant source of pressure and staying on it and all of that. That's just a lot that your attention is constantly dealing with. It doesn't mean that you have to give those things up to become aware of something subtler. Even in all of that activity, you can renounce your attention on those things. So it's not and this is where that previous metaphor breaks down, it's not the material things themselves or the worldliness, the relationships, the activity that is inherently, damaging even. It's our investment in it. It's being so wrapped up in it and believing in it so wholeheartedly. So if we come completely out of metaphors into the direct conversation, when you're engaged in so much activity, your attention, your awareness is always absorbed in something, in some content, right? So you're thinking about something, so your attention is engaged in your thought. It's absorbed in your thought. You're focusing on an object, you're focusing on an activity. Your awareness, your consciousness, your attention is always absorbed in something. If you zoom out a little bit, withdraw your attention, and in that sense, renounce those objects and activities, even if you're still doing them, right? If you have to make money, if you have to take care of children, you have to be engaged in activity. But you can withdraw your awareness a little bit. I don't mean be careless. You'll actually be more present and more able to engage fully if you sort of let go a little bit and step back. And then focus your attention inward. Notice your presence in this moment, your being in this moment. Back to metaphors. This is quite parallel. I know that birds have trouble now navigating at night because, as I understand it, a large part of their navigation comes from sensing or perceiving light from stars and the moon. And all of our cities, as illumined as they are illuminated, maybe I'm speaking in Spanish here, attract the birds. They distract their natural migratory pattern. This is their migration orientation, comes a lot from starlight. And bright cities just confuse the heck out of them. They start, flying into buildings and dying and things like that. It's a problem for birds. So they have they're attuned to something very subtle, to a very subtle perception of light, which is a kind of energy, right? Light is energy. And there's a greater sort of artificial attraction that distracts their orientation. So you could, again, say the same thing is happening to us. There is a quiet inner source of energy, and it's a wellspring, it's constant, that is always there. And then there are ephemeral bursts of energy outside of us that are attractive. In the most extreme example, you have like a fireworks show, which is extremely bright, extremely, stimulating, and very short-lived. It can't last for very long because it's an expensive thing to put on. To put that much energy and force, into the world takes a lot of resources. So that will totally absorb your attention, and it's designed to do that, and it's exciting. But if you have the equivalent of a fireworks display, all around you all the time, your awareness is constantly pulled into so many external sources, and you do start to lose the basic attraction, the basic pull towards your own self-nature, towards a deep energy source within you that is ultimately infinitely deeper and infinitely brighter than any fireworks display or anything outside of you. But that infinity of brightness and depth reveals itself only as you focus more and more and more. And you have to get past that initial difficulty of tuning into that subtle awareness. So this is really the purpose of renunciation. It's giving up all of these things that, as we're looking within, are really just distractions. They're not going to make it easier for us to become aware of this subtle energy presence, this subtle being that we are. But as you tune more into this, as you do have a sense of this inner self, you can engage with all these things. You can go to any fireworks display, and you can still, tune into this energy within. You're always aware of it. It's always there. You're not going to be distracted by it to the point that you lose it. You're very aware of that frequency. So you can, be wherever you want and all sorts of things happening, and you still know what that is. You may not be as interested in those external energy sources because they're not as stimulating to you as what you're experiencing subtly within yourself at all times. But, you can still engage and have fun with these external things, and then there's that inner sense that, remains. So I wanted to clear this up because a lot of ideas of renunciation or rejecting, worldliness can make people quite dour, like miserable kind of, like it's like a really like world-denying, world-hating image of renunciation, which like has gotten mixed into a lot of our, especially Western, like, early Christian notions of, well, more than early Christian, Abrahamic in general, notions of spirituality, that we have to hate the world because the world is sin. And if we take sin in its broader context as just meaning to miss the mark, to effectively get lost or ensnared, then yeah, sure, worldliness is sin because it confuses us. It can confuse us if we're not deeply oriented within. But that's all it is. It's just kind of confusing. It just trips you up in it. In the Hindu context, it has been called Maya, which is just illusion. It's like a veil of illusion of so many attractions and ephemeral things that we get absorbed in, and then we sort of lose our simple inner orientation. So yeah, that's really the meaning of renunciation. And again, you don't have to give up all your material possessions and move to, a mountain monastery to find that quiet. A very simple way to find more quiet in your life is just to stop putting so much energy and focus, stop giving so much reality and weight to the forms around you, to everything happening around you. Engage to the extent that you have to. You do have to probably keep making a living, and again, perhaps taking care of people, but bring as much of your awareness in at all times as you can. And you'll find that with a deepened inner awareness and a deeper awareness of this inner pitch, you could say, of this inner frequency, there's an openness that deepens, and you become more present and actually more available, more ready to engage fruitfully with all the forms around you. So rather than withdrawing your attention and becoming useless to the world around you, you withdraw your attention and then find that you are actually more present and more available for the world and for what the world asks of you.